Hi guys, Ashley here. Welcome to the next episode of Ashley's Digital China. Today's video is taken from a recent podcast interview I've made with the Tech-Powered Luxury by Ashley McDonald. In this video, we talk about the luxury sector in China right now, what the consumer trends are, and what can luxury brands learn from it. Let's jump into it.
So when it comes to cultural shifts in China, it is impossible to generalize it and summarize it in, 10 minutes because it's been a tectonic shift. It's huge. China is not a small country. It's huge geographically, population-wise. There are tons of subcultures. People in Guangdong think completely different than people, let's say, in Beijing. The north of China has about 20 to 30% of the country's wealth and also country's population. So the south of China is a lot wealthier. So there's tons of regional differences and again, differences in circumstances of different minorities. So if we need to generalize, I would say that China has definitely become a lot more self-aware. They have become a lot more, wealthy and with it, confident. But at the same time, as always, it comes with some challenges, of course. When it comes specifically to luxury, because again, it's very difficult to talk in general. But when it comes to luxury in particular, a lot of, observers out there think that, China came from, there was this cultural revolution and people were pursuing simple lives. And then suddenly they became a bit wealthier and now they want all this luxury to kind of counter the hardship that they had 60, 70 years back, which is not true because China for centuries and even thousands of years, they really had this, culture and focus and most importantly, appreciation when it comes to craftsmanship. And hence luxury. And why do we have, silk, beautiful silk outfits, or the China, or even the Chinese cuisine? It's one of the most plentiful cuisines in the world because they recorded recipes thousands of years before anybody else wrote the first cookbook in the West, right? So China had this focus on luxury and appreciated craftsmanship long before the Cultural Revolution. Number two, when the country started becoming more wealthy and when wealth creation stopped being frowned upon, using your money to purchase comforts became a way to kind of differentiate yourself and to reward yourself. And that again was linked with this kind of deeper concept of Chinese mianzi, right? Your face, having the face and building your face and showing your face. In the early days, in order to kind of build your face, you could just buy foreign products. In the very early days, or if you went for, American toothpaste versus Chinese, you're already kind of different. And later on, when it came to luxury brands, France in China stands for a country with long luxury traditions, or Switzerland when it comes to watches or chocolate, etc. So this kind of country branding was very powerful in China. You could, back in the day, and I'm talking about 2000, maybe 3, 4, 5, 6, you could, in order to, for example, sell your cosmetic product, you could just put made in New Zealand, made in Australia, made in France, made in the USA, and plaster a foreign bottle on the bottle of your shampoo or skincare product, and you could sell. But that lost its relevance with the evolution of Chinese consumer. Right now, Chinese consumers are the most sophisticated consumers in the world. They know what they don't want, and they don't want generalizations. They want they want the brand to speak with them, to appeal with them. They want high quality, they want good prices. If they're willing to pay a lot of money, like basically high luxury, then they want it to be super exclusive. They focus on, service a lot. And right now, like the next evolution after that has just begun, is luxury becomes sort of not similar, not equivalent, not equal to sustainability, but very close to that. So if I buy a luxury product, likely it's going to last. And if it's going to last, it's going to have less impact on the environment, etc. So there's been a huge change, and these evolution steps are enormous. Today, for example, China's middle class is the largest in the world. It's more than 109, I believe, million people and growing. And when it comes to luxury consumers, if we're looking also at some numbers, right? And when it comes to luxury consumers in China, they are very young. More than 50% of them are born after 1990. So they are not yet 30, basically 2 years old. And actually 40% of total luxury spent in China, which is also, I think, very unique for this market. 40% of total luxury sales in China are spent by heavy spending consumers, those that annually buy products for about $47,000. Yeah. So when it comes to Web3, there's, I think first we need to define what it means, because just like the metaverse, it suddenly became a buzzword and people are using it in all sorts of ways. So when it comes to Web3, ultimately it's the concept of the next evolution of the internet, right? Which combines decentralization, blockchain, and token-based economies, and it's all kind of digital world. Some people also put in, as you said, ACG, anime, comics, games, metaverse, which is extended reality, etc., all in this Web3 future. So we're going to talk about this broader Web3, right? Which includes ACG, which includes metaverse, which includes this kind of digital version of reality. So China is, at this moment, the country which has implemented Web3 most in the world. It's not about the concepts, it's about the scale of implementation. And there's a variety of reasons for that. First of all, digitalization is China's national strategy. And if you want to know what is the national strategy of China, you look at their 5-year plans. Yes, it's very clear what are we going to do. And actually Web3 digitalization and also eradicating digital illiteracy is on China's agenda. And every time they say these are our goals, they are going to reach them. And very often not even within 5 years, but within 3 or 4. So it is a national policy. National policy means the government is pushing it down to local. So central government pushes it down to local government. And local governments in China, like provincial and city governments, they compete with each other for the budget. So they have very strict KPIs, very similar to Singapore model, where they have very strict KPIs in the government to attract talent, companies, So they give incentives to businesses. And they collaborate with tech giants. So another thing that China has, which is very unique, why they're able to move into Web3 so fast, is because they have tech giants that are rather complete. Yeah, so it's not just some tech giant that runs a social media network, but they have their retail, they have their social media, they have their entertainment branch, they have their payment systems, and tons of other things, and very strong data analytics centers. So tech giants, including Baba, including Tencent, Meituan, including obviously ByteDance, etc., are able to also implement that. And they are buying companies, they're investing obviously themselves to develop that. Another thing that makes China quite unique here is that sheer scale of population. I mean, there's 1.44 billion people. And a majority of adult population, vast majority, is online, and not just online as consumers of content and information and services, but also as somebody who actively participates in trade, meaning they sell their services, products, including, farmers in Guilin and the person selling underwear from her online store in Shanghai. So all that makes China kind of unique here. Plus there's cheap manufacturing, right? Plus there's this speed of innovation. So having said all that, I would like to highlight that at this moment, the real, true Web3 economy has not yet been built anywhere. So it is in the process of being built. And in China, it's being built in a very different way compared to the rest of the world. In the rest of the world, it's more wild innovation driven by companies and scenarios. In China, it's more controlled, government-led, and it's basically all about virtual complementing physical complementing virtual, not full transfer into the virtual world. So basically, Ready Player One is very unlikely to happen within the next 10 years in the China market. But when it comes to, for example, metaverse, right? It's one of the examples. In the West, many companies are building scenario-driven silos where you can, for example, come in and participate in an expo through this virtual setup or a concert. In China, right now, today, the focus is on building the clones of cities. City clones, like a clone of Shanghai, a clone of Shenzhen, and then populate it with businesses and then bring people in there to work, to shop, to game, to have fun. So it's a very different route. So when your question was, it was a very long introduction, but your question was, what about, some of the brands that are doing really well when it comes to Web3? I don't think that brands are currently in position to participate in something that's not yet been built. Of course, there are brands like McDonald's, right? It's like we had L'Oreal doing great things when they launched their NFTs and they created a game. And somebody recently, there's been a local Chinese company that actually they are an events company, and they put together a metaverse wedding setup where, so if your guests are not able to attend your wedding, they can also join your metaverse wedding, which is very, very gamified. And yeah, exactly. So these companies are testing out certain scenarios and are doing well. In terms of the companies driving Web3 in China, then these are tech giants, still Baba, still Tencent. A couple of, Baidu is very active in the area. And I think what's holding it a little bit back is that we don't yet have 6G. And 6G was promised to be commercially available in China by 2030. So that Huawei and I believe China Mobile and many other companies have already committed to this goal, and there were already tests earlier this year by Nanjing Purple Cow Lab with the 6G speed. So once 6G is there, and once this infrastructure, the digital clone of cities, that is when by 28, by 30, this is when we're going to see actual business cases where brands coming in and doing something meaningful. Right now, in my personal view, it is, okay, NFT campaign or a little bit of buzz here, or we created a token to track your product from manufacturer to, to your table. So these are great user cases, but it's not real Web3 because the environment has not yet been built. So sustainability and green agenda and carbon neutrality are, again, China's national policy. So they are going to happen no matter what. A couple of years back, we had this huge buzz about garbage sorting. A lot of people said this is never going to happen. How many countries actually tried and failed, let alone China, where people never sorted their garbage. China was able to do it. Right now, even if you go to a village in the middle of nowhere and it barely has, public toilets on the streets and pavements, you have all these color-coded trash bins, and you have essentially, trash separation and recycling. So the same thing with carbon neutrality, and the same thing with focus on green agenda and green economy and sustainable development. It's gonna take time, but what is not going to change is the policy, the fact that tech giants are behind it, and the fact that the consumer will get there and will be willing to vote with their dollar. So right now, the consumer's awareness is good enough to say, I like it. But to be honest, not good enough to say, I'm going to vote with my dollar. If you show me something that's sustainable, but it costs a lot more, maybe not. But it is a journey, right? Previously, they didn't care. There was no awareness. There was no education. There was no understanding. Right now, there's awareness, there's understanding, there is support, but this other element is currently missing. Obviously, when it comes to luxury consumers, these are people that are typically higher educated, typically with different means available to them. So, of course, they make more conscious choices. And as I mentioned, right now, more and more, these consumers that are already driving in many ways, for example, when it comes to food, they're driving sustainability because they want to buy chicken that is, we call it guilt-free. Guilt-free means good for me, good for the environment, and good for society. So there's no children labor in, Bangladesh producing this chicken for me, and it's good for environment, good for me. It means it's healthy. It's not full of pesticides or hormones or whatever else. So this guilt-free status, they usually implement it when it comes to in-body, on-body creams and any kind of food products. And by extension, they also want to purchase products that stand for this guilt-free status. Is it the major driving decision when it comes to luxury? No, it's not at this moment. But is it an important thing to consider? Is it an important talking point for a brand? Yes, because you can connect with people with similar values. And upper middle class consumers in China, they do have it as one of their values. And especially right now with the pandemic, there's been a lot of shifts in mindset. Health is number one. Coming together and having a community and having kind of a balanced life and understanding what this is all about has become even more important. And of course, because China has been in lockdowns for longer than the rest of the world, there's a lot of psychological pressure and people want to kind of release it. And I think it all kind of comes together in that same message. So long story short, when it comes to sustainability, it's only going to develop and it's going to be even more important factor for luxury brands. Indeed, second-hand luxury, the one that you mentioned, is just one way to make this sustainability possible. First way is the brands themselves need to stand for sustainable production, manufacturing, again, this guilt-free status. The second one is second-hand luxury. As you said, the market in 2020 was $8 billion. By 2025, just in a few years from now, it's going to be around $30 billion. A lot more than back in 2020. Yes. And second-hand luxury, it's not only about sustainability. Second-hand luxury is also because it's a bit cheaper. So aspirational consumers can also try it out. It's also because it's very stylish. And people are impacted and influenced a lot by a variety of cultures from, let's say, Korea or Taiwan or Japan, even, where you can mix and match and create this unique style that nobody actually has. So it has this coolness factor, it has this fashion factor, lifestyle, plus sustainability, plus the fact that it is actually luxury and you're wearing a piece of history. So it all kind of comes together, but I do believe in the second-hand luxury market in China as well as the luxury market. It's not going anywhere because premiumization of everything is only going to continue.
Woohoo! This is it for today. Thanks so much for being with me and listening in. As always, if your team is looking for support in China, do reach out and I'll link you with my colleagues. And of course, have a fantastic week ahead. Stay tuned for more Ashley's Digital China episodes to come.